I'm here with Leslie today. Hi, Leslie.
Hey Shannon, how are you?
I'm good, thanks. Tell us, what's your relationship with the water?
That's a great question. So I think it's transformed over the years. I feel like most of the time when people ask me this question, it's kind of normal to start at the beginning with, of course, growing up in the water. I think sometimes in this part of the story, I tend to gloss over some things, but I think I'm going to give a little bit more of a background, right? I
Please
think
do,
I come
yeah.
from a pretty traditional pool swimming background. So I didn't really start to swim competitively until around like the fifth or sixth grade. So I was very casually on the YMCA swim team. I swam in middle school and I loved it. I am not really that athletic on the land. Despite being 6'1" in the seventh grade, I actually almost got cut from our volleyball team. I don't know why the coach decided to pull the two of us aside and say, "Hey, we almost cut you, but we decided to keep you." But that is actually what
Oh
happened.
my gosh, that's not
But I
okay.
mean, warranted, honestly warranted. I can be completely honest here. Like, still not the most coordinated on land, but always love the water, right? So I decided to take it a little bit further in high school, and I did join a competitive team. So I grew up in Charlotte, North Carolina. So I actually did swim with Swim Mat Carolina, which is a very competitive environment,
Yeah.
and it really was going from, I mean, not quite 0 to 100, but it was a pretty big jolt. I remember showing up the first day and they said, okay, let's do a 300 warm up. And I was like, 300 all at once?
Right.
Shocked, right? Yeah, I really had to work hard to kind of get up to speed with everybody else. And I planned to swim in college. So I ended up having a couple of really great breakout performances my senior year in 100 and 200 backstroke that made it so that I could walk onto my D3 team at Center College.
Nice.
Before talking a little bit about college, though, I think one kind of memory that stands out in my head that kind of foreshadows a little bit of the transition to the distance swimming is that I remember I was at a swim meet and I swam my lifetime best in 500 free at the time. It was finally had broken that 6 minute barrier and I was pretty excited with myself. And my coach came up to me and he said, "Your arms were moving so slow, it looked like you were taking a walk in Central Park." And I find that hilarious because here I am coming up on my 10-year anniversary of being a New Yorker here in Brooklyn now. I was in Manhattan before, but at the time it didn't really bother me so much, but I do think it is pretty ironic. And that had been kind of the theme through college. I had some great breakout swims and I enjoyed my time on the college team. I loved the practices. I hated the meets. I really could
Mm,
never get into the meets, right? I feel like you have kind of that pressure to perform even when you don't want to. And you're a college student. It's the weekend. You want to have fun. And here you are traveling, right? I think easy to have the priority shift. But that continues to be a theme in college of the biggest feedback was, hey, you just need to move your arms faster. And I tried everything. I tried the little pace counter, the beeping in your ears, trying to like mash my rhythm to a song. And I just physically could not. And it's a little disappointing, right? I didn't have the best college career performance wise. I had great relationships. I loved the structure. I loved long workouts. I was always a big practice performer. And I was never really what they would consider fast enough to do the distance events in college because
oh,
at the end
interesting.
of the day, those are very short. I mean, comparatively to what
You end
we
up,
do now, right?
yeah, yeah.
So with all of that disappointment or just maybe a little bit of kind of regret, I did table it for a little bit. I took about 2 years off. I didn't really touch the water at all. And I moved to New York City for my job, and I really still felt like there was something missing. I got back into the water because there was a really beautiful outdoor pool in the summer on the Upper East Side, and it was about 33 and a half yards. So at 33 and a half yards, it's pretty hard to know what pace you're swimming or what's happening. You can really
Right.
just enjoy the water.
Hmm.
So from there, I just kind of thought, I mean, I'm loving the swimming. I'm loving just to do it to stay in shape. I'm not really still thinking about open water until a former college friend of mine who lives pretty close, but just in New Jersey, had said, "Hey, there's this really cool current assisted 10K down the Hudson River called Spite and Dival, New York Open Water." So in 2017, I went and I did that with her, but we thought that we needed full body wetsuits in a very warm, 80-degree water.
Yeah.
And I remember she told me right before the swim, she said, Yeah, I'm actually a little bit scared of this water and it's kind of gross, but I'm just trying to swim as fast as I can so that I can get out. And I was like, oh, okay, cool, I guess. And I get in and turns out I loved it. I thought it was great. I got out of the water and remember just thinking like, first, I think I could probably go faster if I wasn't so constricted and hot by this wetsuit. And second of
Mm,
all, like I think I could probably also go longer. So let's just see where that takes me. And I mean, it's taken me a lot of places in this short amount of time.
yeah. Curious, thinking back on what was it like swimming, you kind of just glossed over. So tell people a little bit about what MAC is. I mean, I know, but not everybody's a US person, and what it was like swimming there. I'm just curious. Like obviously you ended up having this breakout swim, so it's like it served seems like it served you pretty well. But what was it like swimming there?
Yeah, so Swim Mac Carolina, I guess back then it was just Mac. There was still kind of, I guess, not really grassroots, but definitely just kind of getting everything in order. So, I mean, at this point, it feels like a distant dream, memory, whatever. But David Marsh, who's, I mean, a very well-renowned Olympic coach, amazing, amazing guy, kind of came around the time that I joined, actually. So that would have been in, I guess, 2007 or eight, maybe.
Hmm.
And Mac is on the campus of Charlotte Latin, where I actually went to high school. So it was a
Oh
pretty
wow.
convenient and easy transition for me. So it was like, it was very natural for me to just be like, okay, I'm going to try this because I see these kids and they seem to always be at this pool. And our high school practice was there. So I saw the environment. So it felt less intimidating to just jump in.
Right. Yeah.
Um, when I was there, I was, of course, sorted into there's like the three practice groups. I was in pretty much the lower practice group. I had really wanted to work hard and get to that higher level. And I I worked really hard, and I think I mean eventually it did come. Right before I went to college, actually, I did get to jump up to it was like senior three, senior two, senior one. I don't remember how, or I don't know how it is now, but I was senior three for a very long time. I got to really be a leader there. It was pretty fun. Just having the experience of seeing all these fast people and kind of always feel like I was chasing them. I was never really that fast person. When I finally did get to senior two, I had some pretty strong practices, and once again that meat factor. I couldn't really quite
Yeah.
perform on commands like it was needed. And there was a little bit of burnout there for sure. But I do think overall, Matt got me to a great place. My big breakout swims happened like right before, pretty much like during college committing time. And I had a terrible stomach flu before
Oh.
our big championship meet. And I remember thinking, oh my gosh, this is all going to be for nothing. Because I had been training really well and practicing really well and just going so quickly in practices. And I was so ready to finally put show the work. And I ended up, not doing as well in some of these other events that I thought I was going to be great at. So I really had been looking at some of the freestyle events and especially the 100 backstroke. But then it ended up being the 200 that I really crushed it. I ended up, despite having that stomach flu for a week leading up to it, I ended up smashing my best time by like 10 seconds
Yeah.
or something ridiculous
Yeah.
like that. And I knew it was good enough, right? I think at that time, I had a pretty good idea that I was going to go to Center College in Danville, Kentucky. But I had been looking at their meet times and their results, and I was like just barely on the cusp. Like I knew I was going to be one of the slower people. And at the end of the day, I was. But I felt a little bit more, I guess, validated after those breakout swims. And I would say overall, like having that big name, like Swim Mac, it was a really good experience overall because I think it set me up for kind of knowing effective ways to train and always just be kind of thinking about what I had done or like what I'm doing, why I'm doing it, as well as just I think overall strategy.
Yeah.
I really tried to absorb while I was there, and I was a very avid journaler in high school, so I did write down all my workouts. I still have all of them, so it's been fun to reflect on that.
Yeah. Yeah. That's cool. It's interesting. It kind of mirrors a little bit of I feel like my high school. I didn't end up swimming in college, but like I kind of was that lower kind of part of this bigger organization. Anyway, enough about me. Did you have any experience in open water before this idea to just go swim the 10K, the Spite and Devil? Had you been in open water much at all? No.
Not really at all. Like I guess technically there was one small lake swim that we did do together as a team at Mac.
Okay.
And I remember kind of laughing because I was just really bad at swimming straight. I had no idea where I was at any time. I'm pretty sure I didn't even do the race legally. Like
Yeah.
it was just sort of an all for one. Like I think it was maybe like a little over a mile. And I remember thinking like, why do people do this for fun? You can't see anything.
Right. Yeah. How'd you prepare for that first 10K? Was it just in that 33.5 yard pool?
It was, yeah, mostly in that 33.5 yard pool. I didn't really think too hard about it. I remember thinking or looking at the results from the year before and seeing, oh my gosh, these people are swimming a 10K in an hour and 33 minutes.
Wow.
Or like, I mean, that was my time I went, but it was like an hour and 30. I'm like, that's so fast. I'm going to be at the back, but I don't care. I'm just going to swim it. It's
Hmm.
fine.
Hmm.
Um, and then,
Yeah.
of course, to my surprise, with the current, you're flying and yeah, I mean, at that point, I wasn't really like thinking about my place or my time or anything. I was just happy to finish. And really, kind of as soon as I got out, just thinking like of all the ways, not in a negative way, but like of all the ways that I could maybe even be a better experience, right? Like taking off the wetsuit for one. And then just thinking like what might happen if I actually really trained. Cause I was just kind of, puttering around in the pool. I still made sure, I think I maybe did 1 2 hour swim because I was like, okay, if the slowest time is 2 hours usually or around there, then if I can do that, then I know I can finish it.
Yeah. I just thinking back on what you were saying about the 33.5 yard pool, like it's kind of, I almost would recommend that to like anyone who gets really stuck on what their times used to be. Like go to a pool that's like non-standard just because it's an amazing thing when we can, let go of that past and then look where it took you. So it's really cool. What happened after the Spite and Dival? You get shed the wetsuit.
Yeah, we got rid of the wetsuit. I guess so in 2018, I ended up doing a little swim with Sibos. I mean, I say a little swim, but I did Verrazano to Sandy Hook. It was organized by Capri, pretty much the matriarch of Coney Island. Coney Island, Brighton Beach open water swimmers.
Okay.
And she charts it herself. She always makes sure that the currents work in our favor, and it was a really fun time. So no wetsuit. It was later in September. I actually did Spite and Dipole 2018 a couple weeks before that because it was offered again, and I did not have my wetsuit. I ended up going much faster than my last time, and I just remember I was following around somebody that I ended up becoming great friends with after this, Paula Croxon, who's also a New York swimming legend. And we were both wearing pink swimsuits. And she was like, oh, it's the girl in the pink swimsuit. And our friendship was pretty much like history from there. But
Nice.
yeah, just kind of starting to kind of ease myself into the open water community. And it was really after that Verrazano to Sandy Hook, so 9 miles, about 3 hours due to the very fast currents, that I really decided I wanted to kind of take more of a plunge. So it was 2018. I was thinking, okay, maybe one day I'll do Manhattan. Like that would be so cool. I don't need to do anything bigger than Manhattan. Like that's just crazy. I wonder if I'll even ever be capable of doing that. I just really never thought in my wildest dreams, right? So I knew at that time that I needed to get actually serious because I had been swimming in my little 33.5 meter pool. And I found this pretty cool gym that had a short course meter pool and they always had nice mood lighting. So the 25 meters was also different for me because I'd always been yards.
Yeah. Yeah.
Was still really good as far as just kind of, not being too much in your head during the return to the swimming and just a nice atmosphere. So, but I knew I needed to get more serious because I'm going to look at longer swims now. So I decided to join Red Tide Masters.
Hmm.
So a pretty big masters team here in New York City. And I instantly just loved it. The workouts were really great. It was great to have that accountability. I think I had been a little bit nervous to go back on a team after some of the experiences, many of which have been positive, but there's still a little bit of lingering negativity of, being the slow poke. And,
Mm.
I think there was still I had a degree of bullying that happened to me at that time.
In college.
But yeah, I think we're all adults in master swimming, and that was not the case whatsoever. Everybody is super accepting. I love that team to this day. Still very, very involved. We can talk a little bit more about that later, but so I decided it was time to join Red Tide. And so I did that and it held me accountable and it connected me to people that then told me about even other, like more swimming opportunities. So there's also a beautiful long course pool a little bit further uptown that I started to swim at.
Nice.
And all of this to prepare for what I wanted to do, which was one of the stages of the 8 Bridges Hudson River swim. So I picked stage 6 because I had heard that it was very current assisted. I think it's like about 15 miles or so. And I knew that that was a step up from the 3 hours. It was going to be a little bit more, very wildly different depending on the currents. So still in that same area. So you're looking at like just a little bit north of Manhattan and you're swimming down. This is from the Tappan Zee to the George Washington Bridge. So also just an area I knew I was familiar with. So I figured, okay, perfect. So I started to train for that. And then suddenly an email circulates a couple, like probably about a month before the event and says, we have other open spots on some of these other stages. Is anybody interested? So I ended up doing stage 3 as well as stage 6. And stage 3 is even further up the Hudson River. So that one is, I think it's I should not be blanking on this because I actually got married around here. It's the the Mid Hudson Bridge to the Newburgh Beacon Bridge.
Okay.
So a little bit shorter of a stage, but still unlike anything I'd ever done before. And
yeah. And then it's just a couple days later, you're doing the other, like to do swim stack like that. That's a thing. Before you get into I want to hear more about this, but tell me what it was like joining Red Tide Masters. Cause I guess it's, Masters teams are all different. And you were finding out about other kind of open water opportunities. So like what percent of the team is swimming like, I guess, open water as well as Masters? And then I'm curious about what percent of the team is like doing longer distances versus kind of like staying in a comfort zone. You know what I mean?
Yeah, for sure. We have a lot of people that are interested in like longer open water swims at Red Tide. I say the identity of the team has changed over the years that I've been there. I think like around the pandemic, we got a lot more open water swimmers. And as far as like longer swimmers, people have like come and gone. But for the most part, we have a pretty good showing usually at Kingdom.
Oh, no.
The
Yeah.
Kingdom, Vermont. So like all types of distances. Some people do the mile, some people do the 5K, some people do the 10K. And yeah, just getting guidance from everyone was really great. And just having something to share with them really, really was motivating. And yeah, Red Tide was an open water focused team, especially in the summer. You could feel their practices getting much longer in around like April and May versus when I had first joined, we did a lot shorter workouts. I also think the makeup of the team changed a little bit. There used to be a lot of pretty fast, just graduated college swimmers around my age when I first joined. And they slowly started to peter out, which is a little bit sad. Like I wish that more people could, come back to swimming and
not burn out. Yeah, that's a big mission of mine is to help people recover from burnout.
Some days I'm still surprised that I have in the way that I have, but yeah, like I think overall though, I think because there was so many different people and age groups and demographics and people that had different goals, it made it so comfortable that I have just settled in on a goal that I decided.
Nice. That's awesome. And have support. That's great.
Yeah. And I was really inspired by some of the coaches. Like I know Abby Fairman was an open water coach at Red Tide for a while, and she definitely helped me get started.
Nice.
But yeah, like the stage 3 was beautiful. I kind of had a mental breakdown the day before because I was thinking, oh my gosh, what am I going to do? Like, what am I doing here? I heard the water might be cold. What if I just drown? Like, I don't even know. Like thinking back, it seems so ridiculous to me, but at the time it was so valid.
Well, especially you kind of had a little bit, you meet pressure. You were talking about kind of pressure performing in swim meets. Did you have any of that kind of anxiety coming up? Yeah, same thing.
Yes, I definitely did until about like 5 minutes in. And then I realized, oh my gosh, it's just swimming. This is great.
Yeah.
Because in the pool, your races are over in like an hour. Or not an hour, sorry.
A minute. Yeah.
Or less. Exactly. Yeah, that's what I meant.
Yeah. No, I'm the same. I totally was in the same. Meet pressure was a big thing for me. And yeah, once I got to open water, I was like, this is so nice. You can breathe. You're just swimming, like you said.
And then I ended up actually winning the stage 3, which I really didn't expect. So it was kind of my first official marathon swim. And that really wasn't my goal. I really just wanted to finish. I also had Alex Arevalo as my kayaker, and he's been along with me for very many other swims since then. So I thought that was like a very nice omen to start it out. And I finished stage 6 as well. And it was such a blast. So I kind of knew from there that I realized like, okay, well, maybe this Manhattan goal that I thought seemed so lofty and so crazy, maybe it's really not going to be, I don't want to say that hard for me, but I think it's not as unrealistic as I thought.
Right. Yeah.
And then the pandemic happened.
And then there's a pandemic. Yes.
But I still got to swim in 2020, thankfully, just because of being in New York. I trained exclusively at the beach, which was wonderful. Because before then, I hadn't really gotten to swim as much in the open water to train. I was mostly pool based.
Yeah. How was that? So that's a big transition from pool to open water every time. You said you liked it a lot.
I loved it. It was logistically difficult just because I was on the Upper West Side of Manhattan. So that means that to get there, it's about an hour and 20 minutes each way.
Wow.
By train.
Yeah, it's a haul.
Yeah.
It's a commitment to get there.
Right. I know I've already described like a few of the pools in Manhattan, but I think that's the trickiest part, I think, here. I never really complain about it, but I do think that our situation as carless people in a heavily populated city, reliant on public transportation, it's pretty hard to get in my yardage and to kind of sort through. Like, even to this day, I have like kind of a whole entire matrix of where I can go at what time to get it done.
Wow.
It's always such a relief when the water is warm enough to swim at the beach. But it was a glorious 2020. That really was the defining thing of my 2020, just to get out to the beach and have that time and still be socially distanced, but just really coming home to the water.
Nice. Yeah. So did you, there weren't many events in 2020, were there? Like, because it was COVID. Yeah.
Nope. But I did get to do my 20 bridges just because I was local.
Nice.
Otherwise, I probably wouldn't have done anything.
Yeah, right. Yeah. What was that like? You've been thinking of it for years. It sounds like a little while anyway. How was 20 bridges?
It was great. It was pretty warm since it was late August. I guess this is now how it's always done, where it's just a few people at a time. I did get to be a boat observer for some of those in like 2019, where they had the big waves of people go and they had the big expensive boats and volunteers. Like, one of the times I got to observe, I got to just sit on this nice little houseboat. I was inside the whole time.
Wow.
Got to look out the window to count their strokes. But this is a little different, right? It's a little bit more rustic. You have your little like inflatable rib, and your crew is on there for 8 hours, and you're in the water, so you don't really care. But it's definitely different now. But I would say all the same, it was a beautiful swim. And as soon as I hit the Hudson River, I felt great. I knew that I could just bring it home. I think just because of my experiences up to that point too, I've really had made a home in Hudson and learned so many valuable lessons and really just gotten a lot of strength from being in that river. So that was definitely my favorite part. I remember looking like in the Harlem River, you can kind of see where you are because, of course, all of the streets in Manhattan are numbered. So I would be breathing left and I would see, oh my gosh, we're only at 120th Street. There's at least 80 more blocks to go. Why am I not moving?
Yeah.
This sucks. But then all fine once you hit Hudson.
Nice. Well, that's awesome. So that's a big accomplishment that you'd been thinking about. But then, I mean, to finish 20 bridges, even though there's a pandemic, are you thinking, oh gosh, now I have to have more? Are you able to revel in this accomplishment? What was it like?
I definitely reveled for quite a bit of time. I took a pretty good off season in 2020. I think there's always that little bit of me that wants to just be able to like swim like a normal person. Because by that time, you have to swim so much. And it doesn't necessarily always feel like a chore, but other times when I know I don't have to, it is just nice to take a break. And that's actually something I've been working on for years now, is like kind of shifting away from the all or nothing mentality.
Mm-hmm.
But I took a really nice beat after 2020. And I then pretty much after that set my sights on, in 2021, Scar and Tahoe.
Nice. Coming out west.
Yeah.
How'd you pick those?
So I'm going back this year to Scar, actually.
Nice. Awesome.
I had heard of Scar and it just looked so beautiful. I just knew that I wanted to try that out. And I also thought that the idea of a stage swim seems so badass. At that time, I around 2020, I had also kind of told myself, like, maybe someday you'll be good enough to swim 8 bridges, but that's also 7 days in a row of swimming. And that seems pretty crazy. So, like, I'm not sure if you can do that or not.
We'll start with 4.
I thought 4 would be good.
Yeah.
So, Scar with the 4 swims
Yeah. In April, right? End of April. Was it
in
still end of
April.
April?
Yeah.
Yeah. So that's a lot of winter swimming.
Yeah. I ended up, so my cold water prep was probably less than ideal the first year. I didn't quite understand what an undertaking it was going to be and how cold the dams were. I did make it down to Charleston and I got some good ocean swimming in. It was like high 50s. I actually hit a shark there. So that was also
Whoa.
something that maybe derailed a little bit of my open water swimming, but
Yeah. New
fine. It
perspective.
bumped me.
Huh.
I swam in, I freaked out, and then we were okay.
Wow. It's pretty scary.
Very scary. But
How
overall,
big?
Scar,
We're talking like,
I don't really know. I think
yeah.
like based on the size, like I felt the fin, and then like I think it was about 6 feet,
Wow. So as tall as you.
pretty much. Yeah.
Yeah.
Like because my swim friends felt it almost right away, but we were like about that far away from each other. So I'm
Oh, wow.
assuming that's about the size. Um, it was pretty funny because I was trying to be calm, but I was definitely flailing my arms to get back. And then I
So your arms do turn over fast.
they do turn over fast when there's a shark. That's
Yeah,
like, I mean,
that
fight
was
or
the
flight at that
thing.
point, right? But yeah, I remember I was like kind of flailing my arms and like the shore looked so far away because it was low tide. And then suddenly a wave came over me and like crashed my knees into the sand. I was like, oh, I was fine.
Yeah. Man.
But yeah, definitely one of those things. I mean, I haven't had an encounter like that since, but kind of brings you to the reality of what this sport entails and some of the dangers. And
We are in their water. Yes,
yeah,
it's their home.
I haven't been swimming around there since. I actually have a little trip planned there for a bachelorette party later this year, and I don't even know if I'll get in now. That might just be a place that I don't swim in anymore, but we'll see.
Yeah. Yeah. So you hit the scar or the scar, you hit the shark on the way to Scar.
I hit the scar.
Or on your practice for Scar. And so you said you weren't sure that the exactly how the cold water training went. So yeah, with the release of the cold water and the dams. But how did you do on preparing for the distances and stuff? Did you feel confident going in?
I felt pretty confident. I think in hindsight, I was so much more prepared the next year. And this year, I'm just really excited to see what happens as well. Just because I feel like when you're new or when you're starting out, I think I've had adopted the mentality for so long that I didn't know what I was doing.
Mm-hmm.
And I think lately, like even within the past year, sometimes I'll have that thought in my head, like, oh, well, I don't know. And then I think, what are you talking about? You have so much experience. So I think a lot of it is also just self-confidence, reflection, remembering like where you came from. But yeah, I mean, in hindsight, looking back, I was okay prepared. I was physically pretty ready. But what I couldn't have expected was that I actually ended up injuring my wrist on day 2 in Canyon.
Oh no.
There were no other warning signs. I just started and suddenly there was a big like pull, like like just a sharpness in my wrist.
Oh no.
I ended up finishing Canyon anyway. It pretty much hurt the whole time. I thought, oh, maybe it'll go away. Turns out it was actually genetic and I had to get tendon release surgery
Whoa.
later that season.
Oh my
Uh,
gosh.
but I ended up finishing Saguaro, finishing Canyon. I DNF'd Apache because the water was very cold. And to theme here, I could not move my arms fast enough because my wrist was hurting.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
then I still did go back and I did Roosevelt. So I was happy to have kind of had a nice little redemption swim after my very first DNF ever, that actually was. And it made 2022 even sweeter when I did finish it. But between Scar 2021 and 2022, I got 2 cortisone shots in my wrist and I still swam the length of Lake Tahoe. So
Wow. Wow.
before the surgery, I thought I was just convinced maybe it would go away. And I think I think there's some calculated risks and some good times to try to push yourself. And I feel like I was still so new in the sport and I really wanted to just see what I could do. So I didn't really have a lot of fear in doing that. They told me like 3 cortisone shots wasn't good within a year, like that's the max, but that 2 would be okay. So that's what I did. And I had a wonderful summer at the beach training. I broke all sorts of like distance barriers for myself. I swam 8 hours by myself out at Brighton Beach. I
Wow.
swam stage 5
This is
of
even
the
after the shark
8
encounter.
after the shark
Yeah.
encounter. Yeah.
You didn't feel the same fear at Brighton Beach.
So there's a joke out there that the only kind of sharks that are at Brighton Beach are card sharks, poker.
Nice.
That's mostly true, or at least that's what we usually tell ourselves. So there haven't been any real incidents that we've seen. I've recently started to wear a shark bands when I'm out there just because I think that's pretty much the closest way to buy peace of mind. Because why not have it? It's better than nothing. Maybe it's not going to protect against everything, but it buys me at least a little bit more peace of mind. I think it was worth it.
Nice. Okay, so you did you said you broke some personal barriers, 8 hours by yourself. That's a lot. Did you have support at all?
It was loops at Brighton. So we had done this really fun thing on the longest day of the year, a solstice swim.
Mm-hmm.
And the idea was that somebody from Red Tide needed to be swimming at all hours that the sun was up. So I ended up helping my team because I ended up doing that late shift when nobody else wanted to be in.
Nice.
And that was actually very fun. It was very, very choppy. And I just remember thinking, it doesn't matter about the pace, it just matters about the time. And I was basically just getting washing machine out there. It was just really churning, but I was having a lot of fun. I guess I did break it into 4 and 4. So I did 4 earlier, then I took like maybe an hour off, and then I did another 4 to finish it out.
That's good. Yeah. Loops are good way to push yourself, I think, and feel those like without, when you don't have the option to just, get a boat and go for training. I think they're just great for like, oh, I don't want to go, and then going, and then the conditions change and the light changes. It's such a great way to prepare yourself for whatever you're going to face on the day. That's great.
Yeah. Brighton Beach is just a great training ground overall. I feel like I never really know what the currents are doing because even if you look it up and they say they're doing one thing, it's almost never exactly what they say.
That's interesting.
They're just very strong in both ways. And most of the time, yeah, it's like I have an idea of what I think I would go if it's a neutral condition, but it has a mind of its own.
It's not like the 33 1/3 meter pool. It's like sometimes, you can let go of your expectations and just you just go swim. That's what we're doing it for. It's great. So how was Tahoe?
Tahoe was good.
Yeah. The overnight. Did you start at 9 o'clock at night?
I did start at night. I had done a little bit of the night swimming with the Roosevelt 10K. That was my very, very first night swim.
Yeah.
On that injured wrist. And I loved that too. I find it to be very relaxing. That very first time I was very not straight. I was really having trouble with depth perception, but I practiced out at the beach a little bit at that summer and I felt pretty comfortable by the time it was time for Tahoe. I had a lot of friends that came with me as well, just as moral support. And we stayed together after and rented a boat and did a lot of other fun things. And I got there pretty early, about a week early to get the altitude acclimation. But I definitely did have at that point a little bit of imposter syndrome. I remember thinking like the couple days before, I remember thinking, okay, this was stupid. I don't know why I signed up for this. If I survive this, I won't do any more.
Right.
Like,
I think we all tell ourselves that.
this is it for me. This is too much. This is ridiculous. I don't know why I thought I could do this, but here we are. I can't believe I'm doing this. Like freaking out. But it went away as soon as I hit the water, pretty much.
Nice. You don't have that during the swim? I feel like I have that during the swim time. Like if I finish, I'll never do anything like this ever again.
As soon as I got in though, I just told myself like, I'm going to finish this. My wrist started to hurt. But I basically just said not today. And I kind of just started to move my thumb around. And overall, I felt really pretty good, like in the dark. But then I noticed for some reason, it was really hard to gulp down my feeds. And I thought, oh, it must be the altitude. That's really weird. Then the sun came up and there's wildfire smoke like everywhere. It's very painful.
Oh, yeah.
So then I started to panic a little bit, but I still stayed strong. I ended up throwing up a few times because I just couldn't chug, and then I tried to chug and then
Yeah.
didn't end well. But I was super thrilled by the whole experience. I had wanted that really like beautiful blue lake, which I didn't quite get with the weird morning pink sky. But I remember seeing the boats parked at Incline Village and asking, like, wait, are those already the boats?
Oh, wow.
Yeah,
Just came up
it just felt like
fast.
it went
Yeah.
so fast.
Wow. Nice.
But yeah, I love that lake. I would love to go back and really kind of see the blue a little bit more.
Yeah, that's a bummer. Yeah, I guess it is the reflection of the sky, right? In a way, right? So without the blue sky, yeah, that's a bummer. Yeah, that was a bad 2022 smoky year for them.
Yeah, so it's 2021 actually,
Oh,
and
that's
there was
right. That was even worse. Yeah, 2021 was really bad.
that was I actually think I was the last one to go,
Oh, wow.
at least for Reptile that year. And they ended up evacuating out like a couple of days
That's
after that. It
right.
was
Yeah.
bad. Like the
Yeah.
day we left, it was raining ash.
Oh, yeah. That's horrible.
So I felt really grateful to just get it in, even though
Yeah.
it was hard to take a deep breath for a couple days after. But I was just happy to finish, and
Yeah.
my wrist was really sore. But I just figured at this point, we finished it. It was good. I swam fast and I had fun. So really no downside. And more than anything, I really felt like I found that piece of me that was missing, like a little bit of that confidence,
Mm.
because that
Mm-hmm.
was I had gone into it saying, if I can finish this, then I'm good. Like I that this is it. But then when I got in, I realized I had nothing to really be afraid of, and that this
Mm-hmm.
was well within my wheelhouse, and that I could do this. And it's a really powerful feeling to kind of finally feel that.
Yeah, totally. It's interesting what we have to do to earn that, right?
Yeah.
So this is your first flat water, 21 miles, right? With no current assist. And so after this, are you celebrating? You've got this newfound confidence, right? So you're just going to keep going.
Yeah, and I definitely did. I did something pretty stupid, which was that I then did the swim around Charleston,
Oh,
and my wrist was pretty messed up.
oh no.
It came down to the last couple seconds against someone, and I feel like I end up in those situations all the time. I don't know how you feel about those, but for me, if I'm in a really close race, like about to beat somebody, it's never really about like beating the person. For me, it's like I will not feel good, or I will not feel as satisfied if I have not been given it all
Mm. Hmm.
touch ahead of that person. It's not even about the person. It's just more like if they're close to me,
Yeah.
it's like I'm tired. I don't want to do this, but also we're doing this because you're right here, kind of thing. It's like, okay, you want to race? I guess we're gonna race.
Interesting.
Right? It's
Yeah.
just that competitive edge you can't help. But
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
but
No.
yeah, it was after that I realized like, okay, I absolutely need to have the surgery. So I had the surgery. I recovered pretty quickly. The doctor basically said it's genetic. They released like a tendon,
Hmm.
again, like because it was rubbing up against my tendon sheath
Interesting.
and
Hmm.
was creating a lot of discomfort. And they basically said after the surgery, you can't really re-injure this. You may feel your tendon move around occasionally, but it seems like it was just that I have a genetically thicker sheath. So yeah, I don't know. I don't know. Spoiler alert, it happened again in 2024 in the other one.
Oh
But
no.
I mean, I'm still here. I'm still
Yeah,
swimming. I didn't
that's right.
really miss anything for it. If anything, it was like more of a motivation for me to keep going. Kind of just fight through, right? Like don't let it hold me back.
Once you knew it was genetic, was it to fight through, or was it, like, because there's pain's an interesting, or feedback, I guess I kind of like to think of it. It's like, it's an interesting thing to know when to fight through and when to be like, okay, something's wrong here.
Right. Like I think it felt a little bit more comforting when they said it was genetic because I don't really think it was as much related to my technique, although I do have technique battles of my own. Um,
Mm-hmm.
so it made me feel better about it happening in the first place. But then also, I just have naturally like smaller wrists and I just naturally have this happen. So I mean, at this point, it's something out of my control a little bit. And just the fact that these were the words he used. He said, "You can't injure it again. It's really just about how much pain you can take
Oh, wow.
while you're going through it." So as soon as the stitches came out, I didn't rush back to the pool. I did take some time. I was trying to be smart about it. I was uncharted territory for me. And so I was trying to be careful.
So that was 2021. You had the surgery, and then 2022 you came back for scar again.
I did. I came back for a lot of things in 2022.
Is that right?
I did.
What was the big driver for that? That's an interesting one, right? It's like, so you have a big year in 2021, you have the surgery, and then it's just redemption. Yeah.
I think a little bit. I also just felt like at this time, and bear with me here. I think I had the confidence, but I still didn't feel like I had really proved myself. And I think, unfortunately, that's been a theme in my career a little bit that I feel just now I'm breaking the pattern away from. But
Nice.
before talking about SCAR and everything, so I ended up that year doing SCAR, a 10K in North Carolina the weekend after SCAR, all 7 stages of 8 bridges,
Wow.
the Border Buster. I set the record for Rose Pitnoff.
Wow.
I did Lake George. I did Lakeman for Magog. I did Verrazano to Marine Parkway Bridge with Sibos. And I did the Bermuda 10K.
Wow. My gosh. That's a lot of swimming in one year.
And it was most of the time just a blast. I think if I could do it again, I think that it was stupid. The last 3 were stupid. I shouldn't have done that.
How
But the
come?
rest of them were great because I was just so wrecked. There was just no recovering. At that time, I should have stopped.
Part of it. This is good.
Yeah, figuring out or understanding, there's such thing as too much of a good thing.
Mm.
And I think quality over quantity is a big issue there too. I really wanted to just do all of these because I still kind of felt like a little baby swimmer, or like a little chicken, or like I wasn't quite experienced or good enough, or just, something kind of drove me. And I think what had started out as innocent enough, I think still had good intentions behind it because I really wanted to push myself and see what happened.
Yeah.
But I think there was a little bit more insecurity behind all that. And I also think I knew at that time in my life, I had a job that was going to be a little bit more flexible with this stuff. We're still in that nice remote world. And
Yeah.
so I figured this is the time
This is the time to do it. There's something to that for sure. Yeah.
Yeah, I think there was like a little bit of like, this isn't the right wording, not good motivation, but like I think there were some good intentions behind it. And then I think there was some maybe like not intentions, not the right word, but just the motivations could have been better, I guess. Like I think some of it was out of fear or like anger more so than it was about just enjoying the sport, right?
Yeah. Interesting. Interesting. Good reflection. Um, was there a lot of swimming in between these big events, or were we just doing the events mainly? I'm curious.
So it ended up that for training for SCAR, I got very consistent. I actually started to work with Charlotte Bren, and she was extremely helpful in just getting me to a better place with planning the yardage. I had been looking more at hours in the water, which I know works for some people, but I do think I need to be a little bit more rigorous around the yardage to get ready for SCAR again. I think now my approach is kind of in the middle of yards and hours, but later we can talk about it later if we have time. I know this is kind of long-winded, and I'm happy to do like a second part if it's easier, but I love to talk, or if you want to hear it. I mean, I don't know.
Well, let's keep talking about the philosophy. I'm curious, and then where you ended up going from after 2022, without needing to recap maybe every single one of all of those events that you did. So you said I'm curious about that a little bit more. So you liked zoning in on the yardage versus the distance, and then now you kind of balance it out. Tell me a little bit more about that and why that feels important even. I'm curious to have both either yardage or distance, because neither of those really do it for me personally.
Right. I think the yardage in the pool, it's just a little bit easier to track when you're in a pool versus in open water. I'm always going
Sure.
to look at hours in the water.
Yeah, that makes sense.
I think with time in the water, I think the way that I train, at least now, is it's so dramatically different if I'm alone or if I'm with my team.
Mm.
So
Hmm.
I think alone, I'm more likely to do the longer, just longer by myself kind of zone out workouts. And I think I am roughly about 4K an hour when I do that, breaks and all, and not pausing watch. So I could just basically do hours in the water, which would translate to yards. But I feel like if I'm looking at sprinting, right, that's so much more of a high intensity thing. I feel like I have to almost weight that a little bit heavier. Uh, so it's kind of a balancing act, right? Like I could look at one week where I'm supposed to do 35, but I do a bunch of sprint sessions and I'm absolutely wrecked. And that feels
Mm.
harder than the week that I've done 50.
Right. Right.
So whenever I'm looking at yards, I basically do plan out my weeks and I say I'm going to go X yards, but I feel like it's more of just a baseline, not a number that I absolutely have to hit. And I think that becomes even closer or like more relevant whenever you have the open water. Because then if I'm able to just do open water swims, I'll be out there for hours on weekends and it's pretty hard to estimate the yards. So maybe I'll do like a conversion factor of saying I'm like 3,500 yards or like 3,400 yards an hour or something out at the beach. But it's like, it's not a number that really means anything.
Well, none of it means anything. Honestly, at the end of the day, there's no guarantee that you'll show up at the start line. That's kind of where I come from. So it's like, there's not even having a week of 35 or 50. It's like, none of that says that I'm going to be able to finish. Right. So,
It's an anchoring mechanism
yeah.
more than a guideline,
Yeah.
just to kind of keep the structure.
Yeah. Yeah.
But in 2022, I did quite a bit leading up to SCAR. I gave myself plenty of rest after SCAR. I didn't swim at all that whole week, and then I ended up doing the 10K for fun. It was in my hometown, and I
Nice.
figured, why not?
Yeah.
Then between SCAR and Eight Bridges, I really just tried to build back. I wasn't going crazy long on weekends. The water was still a little cool at that time, so I couldn't have, but also I just knew it would have been too much on me. So I had a few pretty long pool swims, maybe like one that ended up being like 4 or 5 hours. But leading up, I would just try to be very consistent. It wasn't necessarily very long. And then Eight Bridges happened. That was beautiful. That was such a wonderful swim and really just kind of hit home for me because it's where I started out. And it was
Yeah.
once again something I really never thought I could do. And then here I was doing
Doing
it.
it. Yeah. Awesome.
And then, yeah, between Eight Bridges and Border Buster, I didn't swim very much and it showed.
Oh,
But
interesting. Mm.
I showed up. I was pretty tired that day and it was a pretty windy day, but I made it through. I can't say it was my best swim, but I survived.
Right. Right. Yeah.
By Rose Pinoff, I was feeling great. So I ended up having a good weather day and also feeling pretty strong. Once again, not doing crazy long swims because I'd already served the purpose with all of the stuff I'd done thus far.
Yeah.
And I did well and I ended up setting the record, which I really wasn't expecting or like aiming for at all. So that was pretty cool. I think it's still around today. And then Lake George, I went to as well. And that was also just really fun because it was more social. And then Miffog sort of just creeped up on me. I didn't really think about it. And then somebody on my team asked me, like, oh, aren't you doing that in 2 weeks? And I was like, oh, yeah, I am doing that in 2 weeks.
Wow. But you must be feeling ready at this point, especially if you'd already done like George and Tahoe. So you're like fine on, yeah.
Yeah, I wasn't really worried about the distance. I was
Hmm.
really hoping to have a fast pace. And then I got there that day and I just realized there were too many yards on my shoulders and too much exertion that I had done in the past. But I was a little bit upset in the middle whenever I realized, like, hey, my pace is just falling apart. But I pretty much did turn it around and tried to make the most of that very, very, very long stretch to Magog that never seems to get
Never
any
seems
closer.
to
I
end.
had
Yeah.
I had a lot of really good, like the Trader Joe's brand super sour Scandinavian swimmers. You're familiar?
I know what you're
Those are
talking
like my
about.
lifesaver.
Wow.
So much candy, so much sugar.
It's funny. I'm curious after that. So after you this monster year, what are you looking to for 2023? Are you still in the same place with your work where you have the flexibility to, you know, yeah, travel a lot and do a lot of swims? Do you repeat this or what do you do in 2023?
In 2023, at the beginning of the year, I start to panic a little bit because I know that my job is ending soon. So I was just in a work situation where I work as an accountant for private equity firms, and this firm was winding down. And I knew that eventually I would need to jump ship, but I knew it was going to be a jarring change because I had been for like the past 6 years in the same place, and it had been good to me. I had gotten promoted quite a few times. I suddenly accidentally became important at work, and when that happens, I kind of think back to when I started versus where I am now, and it kind of intertwined a little bit with my swimming journey as well. Just thinking about where I was and where I am now and how much growth has happened and how much knowledge has been gained. And it's easy to just have a lot of gratitude for that time period where I know the world is kind of falling apart around me, but I ended up getting extremely lucky just with the circumstance of that time. So I really was just trying to soak it in, but I knew it was coming to an end.
Mm-hmm.
And I knew I was going to get married in September. So a lot of things kind of all converging. So I then decided that I was going to swim around Staten Island,
Obviously.
which is, I guess, logistically very hard, but as far as like from a movement perspective, very easy because it's local.
Mm-hmm.
This was an idea that had been planted in my head a few years before because I had heard New York Open Water people speaking about it, but they also seemed very nervous about it because it's a hard thing to pull off. And I don't really necessarily need to go into detail about the whole thing because I feel like honestly, it got so much more attention than I ever expected. And I loved the swim. Personally, it was still probably one of my favorite swims and probably one of my proudest swims because of the way I talked myself through it.
Nice.
But I feel like some of that got overshadowed a little bit by how much attention it got. Like I wanted it to just kind of be for me. And I don't know if that's selfish, but when I was going into it, I wasn't expecting it to suddenly be a big headline everywhere.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
But yeah, I had like thought about this for quite a while, and similar to a lot of the other swims, I thought I might not be good enough to be the person, like to be the person to do this.
Right.
But New York Open Water really believed in me, and when I expressed interest, they said, "Let's do it."
Nice.
And so I was really, really grateful that that got to happen for me in that July. I think by that time I was very much, I mean, as Charlotte likes to say, I'm a yards horse. I was
Sounds
very
like it.
good
Yeah.
at getting in the yards,
Yeah.
and it was easy to just not think too hard about it. It was just, I'm just there, I'm doing the yards, I'm getting my job done, and here we are. I'm going to show up at the start line and I'm going to do the
Mm-hmm.
swim.
Mm-hmm.
And as the story goes, basically as soon as I got in, jellyfish started stinging me, like very small sea lice larvae
Mm-hmm.
everywhere.
Ugh.
And I just remember thinking, okay, this isn't actually happening right now. Like, I'm going to keep swimming and maybe it'll go away, or maybe I'm just imagining it. Like, this is ridiculous because this is hour one of a 14-hour swim and I am crawling. And I remember thinking, like, okay, maybe I'll flip on my back and try to shake them out. And I had actually just spoken with Charlotte like a couple weeks before, and she was talking about like, okay, what things do we need to think about to be prepared? And I had said, I actually said something along the lines of, I don't think it's possible that I would ever need another swimsuit for a swim. Like it's on your body. Like what else do you need? Why would you need
Yeah.
another swimsuit?
Right.
But I packed a bikini. So when I realized they were not going away, I think the water just heated up really quickly and they started to breathe, which is why there were so
Yeah.
many little
Oh man.
larvae. When they just didn't go away, I realized, okay, well, I think what I have to do right now is I need to take this off.
Mm-hmm.
And in the night, I put on my bikini bottoms and I swam topless because I realized, hey, there's less fabric. Like I'm just going to do this. And in that moment, I felt so invincible.
Nice.
that was like still probably my one of my favorite swimming moments ever was going through the New York harbor and the harbor in the dead of night. Nothing's around. I'm topless. It's just a beautiful night. And I realized like if I like that was the craziest like kind of curveball that this kind of thrown like this threw me and like let's bring it on. Like
Yeah.
you can't defeat me this easily with just this one little thing that's bothering me. And yeah, it was just a beautiful swim. And I think that I like the degree of how proud I am like of a swim directly correlates with how I talk myself through it. So like thinking about Staten Island, versus like from Magog, like I was really upset about my pace and then I kind of just beat myself up about it and
Oh,
I
yeah.
finished it and I did a great job, especially
Yeah.
after all those yards. And I was not proud of that swim in the
Wow.
same
Yeah.
way that I was about Staten Island because I talked myself through it and I was able to bring myself back versus some of these others where I just didn't. It's like sometimes a finish could be almost as painful as a DNF when you're beating yourself up.
Right.
And I've
Absolutely.
done a lot of reflection on this in the past couple of years. And in true CPA fashion, I put together this spreadsheet and I've like kind of
Nice.
judged myself on a few factors of like, did I do this? Did I do that? Did I feel this? Did I talk myself through? And I have like a number system and it's like out of 50. And Staten Island was a 50. Um, my Redemption Apache swim was like a 47 because these difficult swims, like something is going to go wrong.
Yeah.
And I think that
Inevitably.
it's very easy to forget that after having a really great swim. And then you try to set yourself up for this next really good swim. And then something bad happens and you don't remember, like, oh, this is normal. So and then instead, you're just beating yourself up.
Right. Yeah.
But I guess like tangent, like to be a tangent, I feel a little corny saying, oh, Staten Island is my favorite swim. Because it's like, I feel like it's all everybody ever really hears
Oh, well, I see
that
what you're
I've
saying.
done.
Yeah.
And like, but it's not really about public perception, obviously. It's really
Yeah.
just about like how I feel. But
Yeah.
it really is because I think it was such a beautiful swim where a lot of pieces came together. And I think it really taught me a lot about how important self-talk is.
Yeah. Oh, it's so important. My goodness. Yeah. I'm curious. Well, just because, so tell me, what you took from Staten Island, like as far as there's the self-talk you've referred to, like I guess how did you? Well, first you got married, so we're going to wrap it up with like what's changed since you got married and this new perspective you have on your self-talk and your matrix for how you rate your swims. Give us a little bit of a recap of since 2022 what you've been up to.
So after getting married, I struggled for a while to find a job and finally fell into one that I felt was going to be good. But it was a very stressful situation. I'm still there. I have really kind of cleaned it up since I started, but it was a very difficult experience onboarding and fixing everything. So in 2024, after all of that press and attention from Staten Island, I started to feel a lot of pressure, not only in my work life, but in the swimming. And it came to the point where I would just show up to a pool and people would be like, she swims Staten Island. And it just became overwhelming. And it felt like it was kind of taking it away from me. And I felt like by some way I hadn't earned it. I'm being very frank about this because I feel like this probably happens to a lot of people and they maybe don't talk about it. And I know we're trying to wrap it up here, but in 2024, I tried to do a few swims and I feel like there were some pretty big expectations put on me. And I feel like I had to prove myself. And on both of those swims, I didn't finish them. And it wasn't really physical. It was absolutely mental. I wasn't having fun. It
Mm.
wasn't worth it. I actually ended up injuring my other wrist on one of
Mhm.
them. And yeah, like overall, 2024, to be completely honest with you, really sucked. But I actually think that I needed to have that happen. And I think it's really all part of a journey. And I
Absolutely.
think my problem before was that I felt like I was running out of time or that I need to do X, Y, and Z before I can do another swim I'm interested in. And so 2024 wasn't a complete loss. I think that I still trained really hard. I still got some good experience in, but it just wasn't the result I wanted. So then part of the reason I had chosen those swims in 2024 is because I was too scared to do the swim that I did in 2025, which was Lake Norman.
Mm.
So Lake Norman is in Charlotte, North Carolina. It's right by my hometown. I had swam there a few times as just training when it was still too cold up north.
Hmm.
And I remember seeing that lake at one point and being like, okay, well, there's no way anybody could possibly swim this because it's a man-made reservoir with all these random branches and impossible, or so I thought, impossible to chart. I spent a lot of quality time with Evan and Jessica with Marathon Swimmers Federation to figure out this enforced route on Lake Norman. The distance itself was about 26. I had a little plan to do a little bonus route. I didn't end up finishing my bonus route, but the swim itself with the length was beautiful. I made the turn, which was like the most important thing to me, to try to finish the length and then see if I could get back in. That was almost the easy part. The hard part was the water, the heat.
Oh, yeah.
I ended up getting out early. But I really, that's another one, right? I think I look back on that swim and kind of analyzing like all of the kind of factors and how did I talk myself through it. And I think this swim actually was pretty uneventful. There wasn't really anything that went wrong, and that's great. But in some, I guess, kind of sick way, it's almost like kind of sadder when something doesn't go wrong because you're not dealing with the adversity. Like I think the heat made it harder. So I guess I'll say that that was the thing that went wrong. But overall, I think what was really important about this past year, 2025, was rebuilding. I didn't do a bunch of swims like I had been.
Yeah.
And I waited until October to do Lake Norman. And so I really got time to just, I guess, like what I was saying, swim like a normal person. Only swim 20,000 yards a week. Or
that's so much. I can't imagine swimming 20,000 yards a week.
it's a skill I wanna hone. I think I know, considering my life now and chapters and phases will be where I definitely can't even do that much.
Oh, more for me. It's more like 6 on a good week if I swim.
Really?
Oh gosh,
wow.
Yeah. It's yeah. I think that's a delusion to think that we have to do more yards than that, but that's where I'm coming from. Just trying to stay out of injury and burnout. Keep loving the water.
Hear you.
Yeah.
It's interesting. I don't know if we want to wrap up, and I actually have a couple off the record things I'd be interested in.
Yeah. Well, we'll see if we'll put that there note for Maxie to edit that out and just say, Leslie, it's been awesome to share your story. I love your reflection on yourself and what you just like everything that you're. Yeah, just your introspection and even just the gusto with which you tackled all the swims on a year that when you really could. I think it's just really admirable that you just tackled all of that and then to figure out how to rebuild and figure out what you're really in it for. That's what we're all here to do, is just figure out how we can stay connected to the water, right? It really is, I think, personally about how we can stay connected to the water. So thank you for sharing with us. I really appreciate that.
Yeah, of course. I think really from an analytical perspective, it was easier for me to kind of digest it and put it into this fashion here, like I said, in true CPA fashion, to just kind of figure out what is it. I think you have that internal feeling, but sometimes it's really hard to verbalize. So I think putting the data with it helps. Having kind of those anchoring yardage goals helps. But yeah, I know everybody's different, and I really hope anybody listening to this can also continue down a good path and make sure that you can find your why and just really enjoy it, because I know I do, and I feel really grateful to have found the sport, and I know that it's going to be a part of my life as long as I can possibly have it be.
Awesome. Thank you, Leslie.